So what happens when a joke told at the Grammys gets a legal threat from a former president of the United States? Well, it's way more than just a juicy headline. It's a huge clash over free speech, power, and, where we actually draw the line. So could a lawsuit like this really happen? Let's break it all down.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get right into the joke that started everything and the threat that came right after. Then, we need to understand what defamation actually is, legally speaking, so we can apply it to this case. After that, we'll zoom out a bit and look at the strategy behind these kinds of lawsuits. And finally, we'll talk about the legal shield that, protects comedians.
All right, Section 1. Let's set the scene, shall we? You've got the Grammy Awards, a massive global audience watching, and one joke that really hit a nerve.
And there it is. That's the one. The exact joke from host Trevor Noah that kicked off this whole firestorm. You can see how it works, right? It connects a pretty well-known political story, the whole Greenland thing, with the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. It's a classic comedic setup.
And this was the response? Whoa. I mean, it's not just a complaint, is it? It's a direct, it's public, and it's a very aggressive threat of a defamation lawsuit. Not just against Noah, but against the broadcaster, too. So the big question is, does this threat actually have any legal teeth?
And that really brings us to the absolute core question of this entire explainer. Now, to figure this out, we can't just go with our gut feeling. No, we have to look at what the law specifically says.
Okay, Section 2. Before we can really analyze the case, we gotta understand the legal tools we're working with. So let's break down what defamation actually is.
Now, this right here is the crucial starting point. You have to get this. The U.S. legal system, it just doesn't treat a joke the same way it treats a news report. Satire, parody, they have this special protected status under the First Amendment. And that, right there, changes the entire game.
So here's the official definition. See, it's not just about saying something mean or something insulting. Defamation is a very specific legal claim that requires you to prove your reputation was actually harmed by a false statement. Both of those things are key. Now, to win a defamation case, you can't just prove one of these things. Nope, you have to prove all 5. Think of it like a 5-part test, and if you fail on even one of these elements, your entire case just falls apart. This is the exact framework a court would use.
Okay, Section 3. We've got the joke and we've got the legal framework, so now let's do it. Let's put them together and see if this case could actually hold up in court.
This table, honestly, it illustrates the challenge here perfectly. Look, elements 2 and 3, that the joke was about him and that it was published, yeah, those are easy wins, of course. But look at the others. False statement? That's really shaky because it's an inference from a joke, not a direct claim of fact. Actual malice? That is an incredibly high bar for any public figure. And proving tangible damages, real financial loss from this one joke? Wow, that would be a massive uphill battle. And this right here is the absolute core of the false statement problem. See, Trevor Noah never explicitly said Trump was on the island. He made a joke that implies a connection. And legally, what's implied in a joke is very different from a direct, factual assertion. That distinction alone is a huge hurdle for any defamation claim.
Section 4. So the legal case seems pretty weak, right? So what's the real game being played here? Well, this is where we have to zoom out and realize that threatening a lawsuit isn't always about winning in court. Sometimes it's all about strategy.
And this slide really pulls back the curtain on the game behind the game. The target often isn't just the comedian. It's the network, the corporation with the deep pockets. But there's another factor here too. A history of questionable lawsuits can create what lawyers call atmospheric precedent. Now, it's not legally binding or anything, but it definitely sets a tone in the courtroom that a judge can't just easily ignore.
Okay, so before any case ever gets to a trial, there's this phase called discovery. This is where both sides have to exchange information. And we're not just talking paperwork here. It involves answering written questions under oath and, this is the big one, giving sworn testimony in something called a deposition.
And this is a huge factor. Because when you file a defamation suit, you open yourself up to being questioned by the other side's lawyers under oath for hours on end. For any plaintiff, especially a really high-profile one, just the thought of sitting for a deposition like that, well, it can be a massive reason to just threaten a lawsuit instead of actually filing one.
So in our final section, let's bring this all home. What does all this mean for any comedian out there who wants to, poke fun at powerful people?
And hey, this isn't some new playbook. A really similar threat against Jimmy Kimmel a while back shows how these tactics can backfire spectacularly.
The attempt to silence him only made his voice louder and, honestly, more popular. It's like a perfect example of the Streisand effect, right? You try to hide something, and you just end up putting a giant spotlight on it. So the bottom line is this. While literally anyone can threaten a lawsuit, the legal bar for a public figure to successfully sue a comedian for defamation is just extraordinarily high. The First Amendment, plus those 5 specific things you have to prove, together they create a really powerful shield for comedic speech.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If winning in court isn't really the primary goal, then what is? Is it about silencing critics, controlling a narrative, or maybe something else entirely? It's a question that goes way, way beyond just one joke at the Grammys.